J&A Sports Bar returns once again this week, hitting the home stretch of the season. The middle of November is here, but man, things are as spicy as ever over there at the Boise State football facility.
It was the perfect timing because, like you said, you're kind of hitting the home stretch, and there's always times, I think, like, I remember like right before the bye week where like everyone was a little cranky and kind of a little worn out, and then usually we'd kind of be hitting that spot again here, especially like, well, they're playing New Mexico, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bryan Harsin just comes in and serves one up right for us, man. Like he's an Idaho Met, and that ball's just coming in nice and meaty. He saw his opportunity and he swung for the fences, and it was fantastic. And of course, that you go into a day and you're like, I think I know what I'm going to write today. I think.
Completely changed.
Then that happens, and you're like, that story's getting moved to tomorrow. So yes, it was very impassioned. That's how I described it.
Just to be transparent, I actually missed that press conference on Monday. I had some family in town. If you don't know by now, my wife is pregnant, and so we had some things to do with that. I just kind of needed a day.
And you were prepping for NNUC of I?
NNUC of I last night, the 207th edition of the United Heritage Insurance Mayor's Cup. Great game. Oh, now you got me going, Dave. Great game. The C of I jumped out to a 12-point lead in the first half. NNU, behind a stellar defensive effort, comes back, wins by 9. We aired the game on Idaho's very own 24/7 as well as KTVB.com. We're going to do it again next Tuesday, but awesome matchup. We'll get back to that. I promise. But my point is, nicely. I did, but I missed it on Monday. Yeah. So I kind of might let you lead the way, and then we'll both react. But I'll offer up some of my first reactions to everything that happened.
Yeah. So kind of how it went was, I feel like I maybe softened them up just a little bit.
Okay.
When you run a couple times and you're going to play action and they go deep and they hit it. I kind of was the run up the middle a couple times because I did ask him about the offensive line.
Okay.
And there was a weird pause because we don't have the microphones anymore. And so I was kind of like, oh, no one's asking anything. And I want to ask something about the O-line.
Jump in there.
But my synapses didn't fire as quickly as I wanted. So I kind of was like, what I wanted to ask him was like, if he could try to explain to the fans why the offensive line isn't an issue, because just about everybody thinks it is, and most of us watching would also agree that it is.
Okay.
So he answered that, and he had a pretty passionate response toward me. Also, kind of said we were maybe adding pressure onto them, which for a group that has like 130 combined starts, I don't know how you would do that, but that's neither here nor there. And the next question was, Paul J asked him, what do you say to people who are critical of your team? They're 8-1 and they're in the top 20.
Paul J asked that.
One, which is right over my shoulder.
Yeah,
so
comes from
I think some people
would
maybe think he was saying it directly to me, but not necessarily. But and he kind of went off on his tangent about
Coach Harsin, that is,
about Twitiots and about negativity that's out there and things like that.
Is this something that he needs to copyright? By the way, is Twitiots a thing that's been out there?
It probably has been out there, but I don't know if it hasn't been copyrighted.
Yeah. Because I haven't really seen it used before. It makes sense. I get where he's going.
Because he has the thing in his contract, for media appearances and stuff. It's Bryan Harsin Enterprises or whatever. They should make a Twitiots shirt.
They might need to.
But what it boiled down to was essentially, here's what I think. He talked for 4 minutes and 25 seconds straight. What it boiled down to, I think, is sometimes the loudest voice in the room is the one that's not there. Right? That there are maybe some fans who are like, fire Brad Bedell, who are like, Harsin's the worst, or this guy sucks, like he was saying. So most people don't buy season tickets, anything like that.
Yeah.
And he did phrase some of it in a way that maybe should upset some people about maybe listening to the boosters. And then he mentioned season ticket holders later. I think he kind of meant that all in one term, but this is the way he said it, was basically like, I listen to the people who are here and have the access and the money to come see us in the facility, and that would rub people the wrong way. And I don't necessarily think he meant it that way, but
because if you go back and you read the quotes and take them for what they are, I think that it can be interpreted that way. I have not had the chance to talk with Bryan about this. I mean, none of us have since Monday.
We haven't really followed up.
And so, I would never want to put words in his mouth, but I still try to take everything, and my take on it is, I think what he was intending to say is like support the program and people that support the program. And I mean, like I think he kind of definitely had the innuendo of monetarily supporting the program, and I definitely think that helps. But I also
when
think
he said investment,
yeah,
I think that's
right.
Where you're going.
I think he just meant like don't just knock the program, also support the program, and he does. I mean, that is their livelihood too. By the way, Dave. I mean, like. Selling tickets, funneling money into the program. Without any of that, none of this is possible at all. Like it isn't.
There's a reason that certain people's names are on just about every building there.
Yes.
Because they gave money for it.
And so if
you want to brag about your facilities, it's because you need people to give that money.
Right. And so while it definitely came off as a very status or an elite status, gets to make a say.
I agree.
I don't necessarily completely think, and maybe it is. I could be 100,000,000% wrong, but I still think it was
like money talks, bud.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Oh,
okay, yeah, never mind. Okay, I was wrong, but I still think that he kind of meant like that. Again, don't just knock the program, support the program, and the people that are supporting the program should have a little more of a voice. And
yes,
I don't know if I necessarily disagree with that.
No, you shouldn't. No, I mean, I think that's what every coach.
But it's very important to remember through all of this, like there are Boise State fans that might not be able to afford to go to a game or do something like that. But they're on their couch at 11:45 on a Saturday night, and there's nowhere else they'd rather be than watching the Broncos. Yeah. And you can't necessarily offend that group.
Oh, and you're 100% correct. And so when I was like, how am I going to write this story? I thought I would transcribe all of what he said and I think I put 90% of what he said in there, and just said, here's kind of my interpretation of this. Because to be frank, a lot of times we need decoder rings for Bryan Harsin. Sometimes it's a lot of coaches, but I think for him, sometimes he'll say something, and you got to be like, here's what he really meant. Or
there's times where you take it super literal, and there's times where you don't take it super literal, and it's hard to decipher maybe which is which.
So-and-so didn't play, but he'll be fine. Fine is in...
He'll be good this year, next week,
we'll be back in a month or a week.
Oh,
he'll be back. When? So you got it's that sort of thing. So you're right. So you have to interpret a little bit what he meant to say, and I do agree, like you said, and I put it out there because I think it was a little tone deaf and it rubbed people the wrong way, and I get it because there's two things. The program wants to be blue collar. Well, if you're blue collar, you're not necessarily being able to throw millions of dollars and be able to get Bryan Harsin's cell phone number. Right? Two, they want to be a national brand. Well, with that, you're going to get fans that live in other states who can't come here.
True.
Who their only outlet to maybe interact with people
is social media.
And so if you are out there and you're like, well, I think the offensive line was terrible tonight, you could say at the stadium, and that's okay. I don't know. I think that was where the disconnect was for the most part. Like a lot of what he said in terms of like, there's a lot of negativity. Sometimes people default to negativity. I get it. I mean, hell, and he even said at the end, we have to live in that world because we have to use social media a lot for our jobs and see what people have to say.
Right.
And I agree. I mean, like, yes, would it be a lot better if people were nicer on there?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And when people are nice, it's a relief. So,
my
question
what I mean? Is one thing that I found myself questioning this week, or asking myself this week, is how did we get to this point?
Fair.
And
is a society or is
I'm going big picture of Boise State football.
Yeah, I got you.
How did we get to this point where a team can be 8-1, ranked 21st in the country, with everything still in front of them, including a New Year's Six bowl game, including a Mountain West title, and a 3-point victory just isn't enough? And Dave, you've covered the program longer than I have. I've been here since the final year of Kellen Moore's career. So I saw the last 12 wins of 50-3. But there was that stretch where they went 50-3. There was the Chris Peterson era where they went 92-12. I ask you, how did we get to this point?
Man, that's seriously an awesome question.
It's kind of a deep question.
It is an awesome question.
I mean, like, I found myself going to like the BCS era where wins weren't enough and you needed style points. And then all of a sudden they tried to take away style points because it was mean to run up scores and all that stuff. But I still think
now it might matter.
Well, I still think that we're almost still caught in that area, in that era in college football of, I don't know, but style points kind of do matter.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think that like that has kind of created this winning is just not enough.
Yeah.
You need to win by a lot.
Yep.
You need to cover the spread.
Yep.
You're supposed to pummel teams. And week to week, if you squeak by 3 points, you're not doing your job.
Yep. You are spot on. And I've thought about that a lot. I mean, a lot since I've been here about the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of mentioned in my story, if you have, and you pride yourself on having the utmost highest expectations.
Yeah.
I'm not talking from fan base. I'm talking about from coaches, about their own program. If people come then to them and say, you have this incredibly high bar, you haven't quite reached it. And sometimes the response is, how dare you? It's like, wait a second. Wait, you're the ones that do this, right? So there's a little bit of that. But I think, as you said, it is correct. They used to just blast teams. And you can disagree with me if you want. When Boise State left the WAC to go to the Mountain West, Bob Custra said, Charlie Brown finally kicked the football. To them, that was the biggest damn thing they've ever done, right?
Right.
Moving up in prestige, whatever have you, competition. And that conference has changed a little bit, obviously, since then. And
look at two teams that were in that league, though, Dave. You have New Mexico State, who's barely hanging on right now as an FBS program. Idaho has already dropped back down to the FCS level. I mean, you can't argue. I mean, like, look at it, folks. Like, yeah, Nevada had some glory days in the WAC, too.
Fresno State had some fine ones.
They did, but from top to bottom, like, the WAC was not what the Mountain West is. Like,
it's not. And if you moved up because you want a better competition, and then you're wondering, well, why aren't we beating teams by 50? You're not doing the math right. You know, if you want a tougher competition, guess what? You got it.
You got it.
And this is not trying to like defend a 3-point win against Wyoming.
No, it's not. But
as a whole.
But as a whole, and that's why, like I said, the way that I phrased it is, I just want to look at how we got to this point.
And you're right. But I think that there is still, people always talk about, don't compare it to the Peterson and Moore days because those were so special. People now are going to, well, what about the Hawkins days? Well, yeah. I mean,
I've gotten that a lot lately, and I don't know why.
Right.
But people have compared the Dan Hawkins era now, and they've kind of skipped over the Chris Peterson era, and now they're comparing it to the Bryan Harsin era. And like, okay, the one thing for me with that, Dave, just to slow things down here for a second, who was the man that believed in Bryan Harsin and gave him an assistant coaching job?
That was Dan Hawkins.
That was Dan Hawkins.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
and Chris Peterson named him as OC.
Was Bryan Harsin part of the Dan Hawkins era as a coach?
No. His last year was while Cutter was still there. So Hawkins was there as an assistant.
Right.
Right. But when he played under Dirk.
No. I get that.
Yeah.
But when Harsin became an assistant coach, I'm asking a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
When Hawkins was the head coach, was Bryan Harsin one of his assistant coaches?
Yes.
So, do you just dismiss the fact that Bryan Harsin helped at all during that time?
Right. It was all Chris Peterson.
And then when the man that Hawkins believed in the most, Chris Peterson, became the head coach at Boise State.
Who did he believe in?
And that guy turned to Bryan Harsin to be his offensive coordinator. I'm just like, you can't just say like, oh, well, yeah, let's look at the Bryan Harsin and Chris Peterson eras and then the Dan Hawkins and Chris Peterson eras and believe that Bryan had zero impact on that. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no, huh?
I know people want to go back to those days, but I mean, who really does that anymore? I mean, honestly, like especially in the Group of 5 conferences, right? I mean, look at Cincinnati and SMU and Memphis. They've all had close games against teams that are probably worse than Wyoming.
Yeah.
Even though Tulsa did beat them, very weird. But and Tulsa beat UCF. Who knows? But
and Tulsa almost beat Memphis, but missed a 29-yard field goal.
Exactly.
So we want to talk about squeaking by victories.
Right.
There's another one.
Are Memphis fans pissed off about that?
Nope.
Probably not. But yeah, and I think there's still this. People had such. it was such a rare thing that I think people want those days, and they miss those days. And to be frank, yes, if you used to go and just stomp people, them fighting back against you, you're going to be like, whoa, wait, what? You know, and I think about this too. Those teams, when they were in the WAC, I think San Jose State made 1 bowl game. Idaho, I think, made 1 in that span. New Mexico State made none. You know, like now, San Jose State's going on the road and beating Arkansas. Granted, Arkansas
is down. Hey, it's still for San Jose State to go on the road and beat an SEC team. I mean, you can't get too picky. That's pretty incredible.
And these teams are doing that stuff, and all these teams are investing in their programs. Maybe, you know, back when Boise State was investing in theirs, building an indoor at a group of 5, that was a bit of a rarity. Everyone else is doing it.
Everybody else is catching up. Heck, Wyoming has a $66 million indoor facility.
The high-altitude training center.
That's 3 times the cost of what it costs to build the Gene Blaemire football complex.
The Utah State, they redid their stadium. So when we go back, we did go see it last time.
I mean, buckle up. I don't think it's going to get any easier. Is what you're saying, and that's what I believe.
And I was seeing, you know, comments from fans who are level-headed fans being like, "Hey, look like 2 pretty equal teams," and I'm like, "Oh, if I wrote that."
You probably missed the point, kind of.
The Twitiots would be on fire. If I was like, guess what? Them Wyoming, pretty much the same. They'd be like, oh my God, what's happened to us?
Yeah.
But they're still winning. It's so weird.
One thing I want to bring up about the Wyoming game, Dave, is after we got back from Provo, right? I found myself sitting in the newsroom talking with Will, and as bad as things went, you're like, man.
I thought you guys didn't talk off air. I'm just kidding.
Not usually. No. We were sitting there and we're like, if they make 2 plays, they probably still survive that game. And both of them were probably the trick plays where their eyes got caught in the wrong spot, and it is what it is. You could even bring up the 4th down play where they couldn't get the stop quite at the end. And you go back to the Wyoming game. A lot of people said the Wyoming game was like the BYU game. Guess what? It wasn't.
There wasn't a turning point.
The 2 plays that Boise State needed to make to win that game, not throttle them, not please everybody, the 2 plays they needed to make to win that game, they made. And they were very similar to the plays they gave up against BYU. A trick play in overtime, Riley Wimpy almost had an interception, couldn't quite haul it in, but still, they were in the right spots. They didn't get beat. They didn't get sucked up. They played the play as it should be played, and they defended the pass and prevented a potential go-ahead touchdown or game-winning touchdown in overtime. It would have won the game. Yeah. And then you back up a little bit further. A 4th down stop at midfield where if Wyoming gets that thing, man, you feel like the game is probably over. You're tied at 17. There's about a minute and a half to go. Wyoming gets that 1st down. They get 10 more yards. They got a chance at the game-winning field goal. But Boise State gets the stop. And after the game, Riley Wimpy credited the coaching staff saying, we saw their personnel, we saw the formation they were coming out in, and guess what? We knew what they were going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a little bit of, that went back a long time, apparently. They had seen that in the past with the Craig Bowl teams.
I just feel like on Sunday Sports Extra, I said, hey, I made this statement, not a huge statement, but I was like, hey, 3-point wins are a heck of a lot better than 3-point losses. And then after all this happened on Monday, I'm just kind of driving in the car and it kind of hits me. I don't know if they are. I mean, really, I don't know what they are.
That's pretty good.
So I think it's kind of important to point out, like, maybe the difference is. Yeah. And there were 2 plays they got killed on, or that basically were the difference in the game at BYU and a loss. Yeah. And they made those plays against Wyoming. And no, they didn't blow them out. No, they didn't throttle them. No, they didn't play up to their standards or the level that they can reach. Yeah. But in this case, it was enough to get a win. And in this case, a win keeps you in the college football playoff rankings and a potential New Year's 6 bowl game.
Yeah. And it still keeps you in the damn conference race.
And it still keeps you in the damn conference race.
Because it's a division game.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the tiebreakers, they've changed over the years. To be frank, what you do against the other division doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. Pretty much. Unless it's someone really good, and what depends on who hosts the conference championship. Everything else in terms of you winning your own division, it does not matter. Does not matter if San Diego State was undefeated and you beat them at the end of the year. Doesn't matter. Right. It only matters what you do against the division. So, yes. So that win is triply important. And it was not great. And for a lot of times I was like, this team looks like crap. And they won. And they won. And so
they won.
And guess what? And that was pretty much my game story was, that's what this team is. I'm pretty sure that's what this team is.
And right now, that's what this team is.
They've done it. I mean, like, I find myself after so many games being like, should I write the "it wasn't pretty but they won" story? My editor's like, you've said that. You said that 6 times. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? And that's pretty much what it is. And it's very rare around here.
Let me ask you this, Dave. Another question for you. If I want to go to next season. Because there's more variables and everybody's got a clean record. If I ask you this, I said I'll give you good odds on this too in terms of betting. If Boise State goes undefeated and wins all their games by 3 points, are they the Group of 5 representative at the New Year's Six?
Yes.
Probably.
Yes. They're undefeated.
If they're undefeated, and they win all their games by 3 points.
Yep.
I mean, what it would take would be some other team going undefeated and winning all their games by more than 3 points, and that's not very likely.
It's very unlikely. Yeah. Oh yeah, they would do it.
So that's why I don't know. Just trying to look at this a few different ways over the last couple of days, and some of the arguments might matter, some of them might not matter, but it's been such a talker that I've been eager to talk to you and digress a little.
If you think about it, they only beat Oklahoma by 1.
Right?
They were up by more than that.
Should have closed that
before that happened.
If that game happens now, that's probably the reaction of some people, Dave. If that game happens this year, that's probably the reaction of some people. Oh, we were up by 2 touchdowns. We should have just polished that thing off.
Didn't hit Iona Key in the foot on that punt. Would have rolled him out.
Yeah.
I don't know, but and I think Harsin's right. You can't always please everyone, and
you can't. And I know that nobody can. We can't.
No.
The both of us won't. There'll be people listening to the podcast that'll be like, oh, you're
morons.
Pro Bryan Harsin and you're dumb. Or might be a coach that's listening to it. I doubt that. But that are like, no, you're with the fans and the fans are not right.
Yeah, exactly.
Or shouldn't have opinions.
They don't understand.
I get that not everybody's going to agree with it. But, man, one thing I think we can all I think I do know something we can all agree on. Look at the passion that surrounds this argument.
Yeah.
People care about the program.
There's a reason The Athletic wanted to hire a Boise State writer.
Boom.
And so this is what you got. Sorry, people.
People care about the program. Yes, the reaction might be too negative for some sometimes. Yes, the product on the field might not be what people want to see at times. Yep. But I still feel like the reaction that you saw across every social media platform following Monday's press conference was, I kind of found myself saying, at least everybody cares. And in a weird way, everybody's also defending the program.
Yeah.
Like whether you're on the good or bad side, negative, positive, everybody's kind of defending the program too.
From Twitiots and non-Twitiots, the reaction was really, again, it was impassioned, from both sides of it, which means that Bryan Harsin struck a nerve. It was, a lot of times, as we've established, when he goes into a press conference, he sometimes has a point he wants to make. Maybe he's wanted to make that point for some time now. He had the opportunity and put it out there. I mean, and again, agree with most of it. Some of it, it's about like, used to be you had to do something to have an opinion, and it was kind of like, I don't know, get it going with that one.
Yeah.
You never know if some chucklehead on Twitter
sitting there in the seats. This is going on.
Exactly.
Oh my, what is happening?
That's why I like added Chris Vanini from The Athletic, because the week before he had used one of Harsin's like really long answers as like a notebook item, and a lot of fans really liked Harsin's response for that. So I was like, sorry, Chris, I'm taking this week's one.
Okay, that makes sense now.
Curtis Weaver liked it, by the way.
Ooh,
he did when I said that. So.
Yeah.
I don't know who's criticizing Curtis Weaver.
Hey, and what's that?
I don't know who would be criticizing Curtis Weaver. Just like Harsin was like, yeah, Van Der Esch Madison got it, and I was like, from who? So I tried to deduce in my story. I said it clearly wasn't during Leighton's junior year. I think I said when he played, like it looked like he was built by Skynet, like he's a Terminator. Yeah. And I said, but Cowboys Twitter is a weird place. So I'm sure when he got drafted, I know a lot of people.
Yep.
Madison, I'm like. People loved Madison, but if you remember, he had like 100-yard game in his first 7 last year. Right. So I'm sure there were some people.
You could find something to be picky about.
So he's probably right, but it was like he probably had to look for that.
Yeah. You know, one other thing that I question about Bryan Harsin is, or I just kind of wonder, because I honestly wonder, like, how often does he get to just thoroughly enjoy a win? I mean, he probably didn't get to enjoy that Wyoming win.
God,
I mean, like,
probably not.
They probably talk about the 24-hour rule, and I don't know if the players say that and stuff, and I certainly hope the players still got the chance to enjoy it a little bit. But I feel like I'd be willing to bet that it was like probably just right back to work almost that night on what they can do better, how they can find a better way. And our job, you know, we love to make players relatable and coaches relatable and find human interest stories. And despite the fact that, you know, Bryan Harsin is the highest paid state official and one of the biggest names in the state of Idaho, if not the biggest, the fact that he is a human, right? And
yes.
So we love to kind of normalize things, right?
Yeah.
Well, I honestly kind of wonder, like, how often he just gets to enjoy a victory.
Yeah. Some you can tell mean more. I mean,
yeah.
I think
Florida State, man, like that was like one of the more passionate Bryan Harsins after the game I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
He's high-fiving fans. It was an emotional game, a huge comeback in ACC country at that point in time. You know, Florida State had a lot of talent, and Florida State's still probably going to go to a bowl game. I mean,
they have to win.
They have to win I think they're 5-4 now, I believe. But I mean, it's not like they're terrible.
Yeah, I think they have like Alabama State or somebody like that.
Yeah, okay.
So I think they probably would be eligible.
Just picked up a big road win. I don't know, but beat Boston College pretty good.
BC beat Boise State 7-0 last year. So.
Damn it, Dave.
but no, yes, I agree, and like I remember, you know, early on in his tenure, but like when they would beat San Diego State. Mm-hmm. He was always fired up about that one. You know what I mean? So there are some, I think, but it's also kind of funny. It's the pro and con of him being a guy from here. Mm-hmm. I think he knows. He knows. He's well aware of what's going to happen if they win a close game.
Oh, I know, right?
Or people think they shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you know, a freshman from Texas or something that comes in and, you know, he's on the field and he's celebrating, and then all of a sudden he gets on Twitter and he's like, wow, fans aren't really happy. Like, you know, they kind of have to learn it. But you're right. Bryan Harsin has been here forever. He definitely knows. And another thing,
he didn't really bite on it, but after San Jose State, I said to him real quickly, I said, hey, I was like, based on how people react, a comeback win against San Jose State sure isn't the same as one against Florida State. Mm-hmm. And it took him a second, and then he said something really complimentary about San Jose State. This is just me and him talking. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it registered with him, but what I was trying to say is I just found it funny that they, you know, had a comeback win. Mm-hmm. And they were trailing most of that game. Yeah. But sure as hell feels different to a lot of people, you know what I mean? And I get why, but it's like, you know, I just find it very funny.
Yeah.
As you're saying about Harsin.
Oh, I just another thing. Like, yeah, I think that, you know, for whatever reason, it is like such a weird thing to analyze and critique. It truly is, because we watch a lot of football, Dave. But if we actually think that we know as much about how an offensive game plan as Zach Hill or Bryan Harsin, right? That's just clearly erroneous. That's not even close to being the case, right? And so, you know, when people talk about effort and stuff like that, and we don't, man, there's like so much that goes into this. I'm like really trying to pick and choose which way to go. We don't know everything that happens in that building. We really don't. And that's why I think when sometimes you're like, oh, he didn't play well, he looked off. Well, how do we know that he's not dealing with an injury or something more? Those are things that are never told to us. Correct. So like we always don't have that at our disposal before making our assessments. You know what I mean? Like maybe there is a guy that's playing hurt right now, but he's doing it to give everything he can and help the team out, but we don't necessarily know that. And I do think there are guys like that right now, Dave. I really do. Which ones? I don't know. Can't tell you, because that's not a thing. That's why I would love if they ever actually did, like the NFL does, of mandating accurate injury reports. And it helps on so many levels. I mean, like, if you know a guy's questionable going into that game and he's got a high ankle sprain like you would in the NFL, and he plays a little off, well, all of a sudden your perception changes a little bit, and the way you analyze it changes a little bit. You're not just like, overly critical because you think the guy's at 100% and just doing bad.
And you're, you know, you or I would hypothetically, guy's doubtful.
Yeah.
Because he has a hand injury.
Right.
Guy plays, guy catches a touchdown pass. Your story then becomes, this dude was doubtful with a
catches a touchdown
fractured
pass.
hand or something,
Yeah.
and he catches a touchdown pass.
Right.
That would help that.
Again, all those things just aren't made available to us. So like it at times, my point is at times it is really hard to assess the situation because you don't have all the information, but you're not going to get all the information. So you just do your best.
And that goes back to Harsin's thing where he said where some people are like not informed or they don't know or whatever. It's a difficult line to walk because you can ask him a question after the game. What happened? What happened on the interception? Oh, miscommunication, misread, whatever.
It's not a lack of effort to get informed.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
I promise.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. There are attempts are made.
Yeah.
But
given the fact that they don't have these injury reports and stuff, I also know why, as a coach, you would want to keep that close to the vest.
And also,
since
Bryan Harsin won't throw anybody under the bus. If a play goes haywire, it's just, something happened. And, you know, there's been times where he's told us later, months after games, where you bring something up and he's like, oh, that guy ran the wrong route. And you're like, oh, you know, but you can't see in February what happened in December. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
So knowing some of those things, I mean, I know the injury thing is big because, again, Bryan Harsin has actually said he's not in favor of that sort of injury report, which should surprise none of you, because.
But if everybody was forced to get on board,
correct. If everybody's forced to do it,
like it's so easy just to say no when it's not a reality,
right?
But if like the NCAA came out and said we're doing this, everybody accurate,
right?
You kind of wonder if you could see maybe a benefit or something like that. Like,
and how many times with the NCAA has something like that happened, where everyone's like, oh, like a lot of times coaches who are like, oh my God, this thing is going to be the worst ever. You know, it's like, you can retweet recruits, you can all these contact
that's
things.
Too much. We're going to be spending too much time talking to these guys now.
No one cares.
And now nobody cares. It's fine. It's
I thought it was going to be like the Wild West. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to delete my Twitter.
Yeah.
Things like that. Guess what?
Nope. Everybody just does it now.
It's fine.
Yep.
It's not that bad.
And even especially now, like we're a few years in, when Harsin first got here and he's tweeting out "Go Broncos," I mean, it's like Bronco Nation on fire. Coach is tweeting, we got another "Go Broncos." Now it's kind of like, okay, he's got to commit probably.
Cool, and we'll find out eventually
who it is. From now, whatever.
Yeah, that's not.
I just remember, like, you saw that "Go Broncos" tweet initially, and it's like, people on your computer, and you're like, who is it? Who is it? Now it's like, be patient a couple days. We'll all learn. Signing days in mid-December.
And also, like, again, there's a level of respect to what we have to do. Like, sometimes if there's like an 18-year-old kid or 17-year-old kid
that wants to keep it private,
and he wants to do an outside on his own terms.
Yeah. Then you got to let them do it.
We respect it.
Yeah.
This is their one time to do something like that. But anyway, you talk about like the injury thing, and I agree with it because Harsin has a policy which is frustrating, to be frank. And it's of course I want everything. Of course I want all the information. But when it's like that guy should be okay, he's dinged up, he'll not season ending, and it's like, I don't want to have to ask him every single week for 6 weeks like Leighton Vander Esch. Remember when Leighton had his neck thing, his sophomore year? Right. It was almost every week. It was like, Vander Esch, maybe.
Not here.
And
he's playing against Air Force.
all of a sudden on Saturday, Chase Chord starting, Hank's going to suit up. We're like, whoa. And Hank did suit up, but didn't do anything. Yeah. And there's sometimes stuff like that where it's kind of like, I get the game planning thing of it. I guess that's, let's be frank, that's 100% what it is. I know there's, Harsin's talked about concern about like, doesn't want like, people asking the guys like, hey, when are you coming back and stuff like that. I'm sorry, but if you get pulled out of a game and you're limping, everyone saw it, but I just think that, it would be helpful just because it's kind of like, it's all about getting an advantage over your opponent. That's all it comes down to. Let's be honest.
It does.
And so like,
and I think there's some coaches that think they're better at that than maybe other coaches, and that's why you're either for or against it.
Yeah, it's like I have a buddy, my buddy Kalen covers Texas. So he's like, they constantly are updating. Like coaches are always like, he'll be out 2 weeks. He's got a sprained wrist.
Oh, that's every now and then on Twitter you will come across something like that. You're kind of like, wow.
How'd you get that? It's like, Herman told me.
We didn't even ask him. He just said, hey, he's going to be out a week.
I understand. It's Saturday really put it into focus for me. Like that sort of what that frustration can be. I didn't get a lot of fans that were upset. Like they weren't like, how the hell didn't you know this? Did we see him in practice? Yes. But who knows? Maybe the minute we left, they're like, all right, you can take off the pads now, Hank. Those guys are gone. But it's kind of like, well, crap. I think a lot of us did stuff on Hank because he's available to media. A lot of us did stories about it.
Oh,
hey,
totally.
Get excited. He's not playing. Cool. So
it's hard.
Said Mahone was going to play.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah. And I know, sometimes injuries are hard because guys heal differently and maybe stuff truly does change. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, the point is Bryan Harsin's had a lot of success here. He won his 60th game as the head coach at Boise State on Saturday. He's 60-16, which means he's won about 79% of his games. At home, they're 33-5 since he's been here. And I know, again, that there are probably some fans out there that'll point to that and be like, yeah, but they're not 96-4.
Oh, yeah, that run.
Well, 33-5 is still pretty good.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know, right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Another thing that a lot of us were talking about in the press box during the game is that in each of Bryan Harsin's seasons that he's been here, he's had at least one game where Boise State has been double-digit favorites and they've lost every season, at least one.
At least one, and at least.
Well, you point, yeah.
It's been every one of those years they've had one that 13 or more.
Yeah, you could even.
There was one where they had two.
Right.
But
correct.
So it's usually 2 touchdown favorites.
Usually, and guess what, Dave? They still haven't had that game this year.
They haven't had it.
At the end of the day, at the end of Saturday night or early Sunday morning, whatever it was, they couldn't add to that list. So,
because BYU is about a touchdown?
Yeah, maybe even a little less.
Okay.
By the time kickoff happened, I can't remember. I mean, it opened up like at 2.5. I want to say it went up like a touchdown.
You're right. It wasn't even a touchdown.
Yeah, something like that. But game still hasn't happened this year. So, is Bryan Harsin a good football coach? Look at the record.
Yeah. He has his idiosyncrasies, and there are things that sometimes can make it a challenge.
Yeah.
For me, but I just don't think you can mess too much with the results.
8-1 this year. They've won 79% of the games since he took over in a higher league than they've ever played in before. I'm really not trying to make excuses for him. I promise you that I'm not. But it is so easy for me to compare and contrast to the teams that I have rooted for growing up. Washington State, even the Seahawks.
Yeah, for a long time. The Mariners.
The Mariners. Like, it is so easy for me to compare. And at the end of the day, like, well, stuff's hitting the fan and you think the world's falling, you're like, you still step back. And when the rankings are released, it doesn't say anything else but Boise State, their record, and their ranking. And at the end of the day, you're like, that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just, it's tough. How did we get here? I think that it goes back to the BCS era when all of a sudden margin of victory started to matter.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters as much anymore because unless something goes crazy here where a team in a group of 5 really does go on, like I think it would take a 30-game winning streak, maybe 40-game winning streak, Dave, for a group of 5 team to really legitimately be considered for the college football playoff.
Well, it's
not going to happen. So in that regard, you're judging yourself against the group of 5 to get to that opportunity to play a big Power 5.
Yep. Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, hypothetically, if UCF had run the table this year, think about where we'd be at with that discussion right now. Mm-hmm. Alabama's sitting.
Probably be pretty darn close. I know they'd be banging their chest.
And they would be just outside of it.
Yeah, I think they would.
It. And they would be insufferable on Twitter. You want to talk about Twitiots?
Yeah.
Dude with the cross swords logos on their in their avatars. Those guys would be relentless.
Yeah.
But I think, this isn't a Bryan Harsin defending podcast. I think we've actually cited examples on why it's not perfect. But the results are very good. It is interesting to me sometimes. I mean, obviously everyone connected with Chris Peterson, even Hawkins, because Hawkins has had that kind of bravado about him that like Harsin.
Well, that's
Harsin's
what it was.
a bit more of an enigma to me.
Okay, San Jose State game, right? Boise State has a chance to kneel on the ball, maintain possession.
Good time to reference Dan Hawkins.
And get a 3-point victory at San Jose State. But in this case, Bryan Harsin does run it into the end zone. Boise State goes up by 10.
Yeah.
And after the game, he says, you know what, we've been aggressive on offense all night. That's the way we were going to finish it. You kind of get the feeling that Dan Hawkins would have said, no, touchdown was there. We're running up the damn score. Like during his heyday.
That's him to a T.
Yeah, exactly.
That's him to a T. That's exactly what.
And I think that fans are like, yeah, let's do that. You know, to where what the way that Bryan, goes about it probably is better for the psyche of his team, I would say. Like, no, we're going to stay aggressive. This is what we're doing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I should probably back off that a little bit. But
the humor in that is that week was when I wrote a story about how a Dan Hawkins coach team that was undefeated went down to San Jose State
and barely won
against a 2-win San Jose State team and went to double overtime and won. I mean, I wasn't here. That was right before I got here. I think people were probably just happy to leave with the win.
Yeah. I mean,
imagine they were undefeated now.
Yeah.
And that happened in San Jose State was worse than they are.
Well, yeah, right. Seriously. Another thing about that is, people, I had somebody tweet at me like comparing conference titles then to now. They didn't have a conference championship game then. I mean, go back 2 years ago when Boise.
At least one of those was there was like a 3-way tie, and you can claim it.
But you can claim it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last year, would Boise State have just been the outright champ without even playing Fresno State on the blue?
They had a better conference record, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
they beat them head-to-head.
If it was just a 12-team conference, no divisions.
Yeah, and they beat them head-to-head in the regular season, right?
They did. Yes.
So, in the WAC, that's a conference title.
Right.
In the Mountain West, you got to play one more.
Yep.
And that one more didn't go in favor of Boise State, and it didn't result in a conference title.
Yep.
I love stats. Love them. I know, right?
You?
But sometimes you really got to you really look at them and their value and their meaning, and it's not always cross-comparing numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pro Football Focus does these player grades. I love Pro Football Focus, but whether you're Boise State and you're playing San Jose State, or you're playing on the road at Florida State, or whoever the heck you want to substitute into the opponent line, you're graded basically the same. You play a 12-game SEC schedule, a 12-game Pac-12 schedule, a 12-game WAC schedule. It's the same grading scale, right?
Yeah. You gonna say to that?
What's up?
PFF. But yeah, I mean, it is funny, when you think about all that stuff.
Yeah.
The cross comparing, because even if you go to like College Football Reference, right, and they have a little bit of a metric when you pull up a team's history, right, year by year, there is a some sort of a gradient for. There's like a strength of schedule one. There's one other one. But the strength of schedule one, if you look for Boise State, mostly since they've been in the Mountain West, have been among their most difficult schedules. Whatever using whatever this metric is. As we were alluding to earlier about the conference improving, that their strength of schedule, since they've been in the Mountain West, has been among the most difficult since they've become an FBS school. So. Take that for what it's worth. If you want to talk about measuring things and all that.
We are still gaining the necessary perception that we need for this team. I mean, what happens at BYU's schedule starting to get a little easier after playing a daunting slate earlier? What if your worst loss is to 7-4 or whatever it would be BYU team on the road by 3?
With your backup quarterback.
With your backup quarterback, yeah, exactly.
I know they had their third one.
Whatever, okay. I don't want to factor that in right now, because like, if that's your maybe your one loss on the season,
right?
How do you call that a bad season?
Yeah, but I mean,
whether they actually end up in a New Year's Six or going back to Vegas, if that's your one loss. I don't know how that's the worst loss.
I hedged myself a little bit when I did my midseason report. I said they'd finish 11-1 in the regular season. And I said one of their losses would be in the state of Utah. They already had it. So maybe they're winning against Utah State. I don't know. I still think that's what this team's very capable of. And I mean, it's pretty evident they're probably going to be 10-2 at worst.
Yeah.
CSU's better than we thought, but
the geniuses down in Las Vegas that make billions and millions of dollars off of us.
Yeah.
They had Boise State at winning 9.5 games this year.
Yeah.
And
they're going to hit the over?
Pretty sure they're going to hit the over. Pretty confident they're going to hit the over. Although I will say this, because I've been saying for a couple weeks that Utah State doesn't scare me. Utah State kind of woke up this last week.
Utah State is scary because you just knew, and I said it before, and I'll say it every time,
but
that like if they played like crap up until that game,
they
have that potential.
Yep.
And you're like, ugh, maybe it came out.
Can we steal what happened to them and maybe apply that to Boise State? Like, you still feel, you look at this team and the potential, despite the fact that 2 true freshmen are playing big-time roles at running back and quarterback for this team, and you just think, like, well, what if they do wake up?
Yeah.
Like, what if they put it all together? That would be a team that could hang with a lot of teams across the country.
I don't know if, like Bryan Harsin called, earlier, like deodorant. Mm-hmm. Remember that? That was a little thing?
Yeah.
I think Saturday is going to be deodorant.
Yeah.
I really do. I think they're going to beat the crap out of New Mexico. And maybe some of those woes. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Who knows if some people in that facility might be like take that media and Twitiots, but it's like, well, New Mexico.
Yeah.
But
New Mexico has the worst pass defense in the country. And it's like, it's not even close. They're like 30 yards per game worse than the second worst. Like, they're not good in certain areas.
So no matter who plays quarterback, might do okay. But I can see it, and they're really bad at giving the ball away and really bad at taking it away. Mm-hmm. Boise State's had 11 takeaways all year, and 4 were in one game. Mm-hmm. I have the feeling that this game will be a little bit of a salve for that, and I don't know. And so, like, they'll probably be feeling good, but it's like, it'll just be funny because I can almost assure you it'll be like, some people will be like, see? And you're like, all right, let's just wait till the week after for this to really.
Yeah. But I think running the ball is going to be important. And again, you talk about, we were mentioning guys that might be banged up. I mean, like, again, like, try to like really look at the full picture here. So Hank misses BYU, right? They have a bye. He comes back against San Jose State, and they run the ball more than they've ran the ball in any game this season. Mm-hmm. They wanted to run the ball against Wyoming and had a really tough time doing that.
Yes.
I don't think any of that's just like a coincidence. Like I said, like I feel like they kind of are in a mode where they got to battle right now, get whatever they can, and they'll get back to a point where maybe they will get more healthy. And I mean, Hank missed last game. Like maybe they get back to a point where they're more healthy, and then they start to turn it loose again.
Yeah.
But if they're looking at what they got and assessing and saying this is what we got to do to win, and I'm not dogging on Chase Cord either. I mean, like, you know what? I know it's like stuff hasn't looked like it has when Hank's at quarterback, but I do think Chase Cord's battling right now. And I'll go back even on that game-tying touchdown drive against Wyoming. Like, Shaq scored the touchdown, the game-tying touchdown, but on the play right before that, Chase scrambled and diving head first down to the 5-yard line. I mean, you can't tell me that kid doesn't want to win. Yeah. Like, for anybody out there that's saying like, he doesn't, look as prepared or like he's trying as hard, I will tell you that you're wrong on that. Yeah. Definitely.
I said all along, I thought they have a luxury that he's their backup quarterback.
He is, and I think that he's fought through. I mean, he's recovering from a knee injury that takes up to a year to get better, and we barely have crossed that year mark even. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you got anything else, but I mean, like, I don't know.
Maybe
there's more to it, I think.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Marshall, maybe. The 2 best defenses they probably played were Wyoming and BYU.
Yeah.
If maybe Marshall. I don't know. It depends on.
Marshall was good that night.
Yeah, they were really good that night for sure. And they're favored against La Tech this week. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so again, if we weren't adjusting for opponent, that's a challenge. Granted, the third downs are remarkably different.
They are
with Chase in there against versus Hank, and I think that's where you see the biggest difference.
Yeah, and only going off the numbers, not any other thing of ability, health, any of that. This time I am just using the numbers. Hank has been able to get them out of some of those situations. I don't know if it's – I'm not saying that Chase doesn't have the ability to, but for whatever reason, the way the circumstances are right now, he hasn't been necessarily been able to at the rate Hank had when Hank was healthy.
Yes. That is 100% true.
Right?
Yes. Like,
I feel like we needed a Dakota ring for them. You guys listening right now that for some of the stuff we're saying, but we're trying.
Yeah, we're trying here. We're doing the best again.
Yeah.
Talking about
doing the best.
Trying to find that information. We are trying to deliver it best we can. But in his 2 starts, he's on his first drive.
Man, it's
chases
great.
and touchdowns.
Yep.
They're 5 for 5 on third downs on those. The rest of the way. In those other 2 games,
oh goodness,
is 4 of 17.
Wow, that's a big swing. It's on third down. That's a massive swing.
And I think passing, he's like 2 for 9 or 2 for 11. It's remarkable how different it is after that scripted start. Where Zach, I asked him today about it, and Zach was like, "Yeah, they spend all week kind of focusing on those first 15 or whatever plays." And you can see it, and that's once again the difference between when you go with your starting quarterback and your backup.
It is what it is.
Yep.
So back on the Blue this Saturday. It is senior night. I can't believe it. The final guaranteed game on the Blue this year. Like I kind of still feel like, despite the fact that everybody's a little skeptical, not everybody. I shouldn't say everybody. Some people are kind of skeptical about this team being 8-1, knocking on the door of a top 20 ranking. I still feel like even those people are still believing that there's going to be another game on the Blue this year, and that'd be the Mountain West Conference Championship game.
Just in the way, again, the tiebreakers are and stuff like that, like, Utah State has Wyoming.
Boise State was really, really, really close to putting themselves in a scenario where they didn't even have to beat Utah State, and they could still win the Mountain Division and play for the Mountain West title.
If Utah State lost to Fresno.
If Fresno State would have been able to hold off Utah State there at the end and beaten them, Boise State would have had a 2-game lead over them and essentially a 2-game lead over a 1 conference loss Air Force, because Boise State has that tiebreaker.
Right. And so basically if they'd beat New Mexico, then they would have been set.
I mean, it would have been –
we're not there now.
Hay would have almost been in the barn. I mean, well, there would have been a lot of hay in there. You're just packing it full.
Yep.
Is that what they do when they put hay in barns? I don't know.
Yeah, they just push it all in there.
Okay, get a lot of it in their barn?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
yep.
like hella?
Hella hay.
Okay. Get a lot of the hay in the barn.
And that's why there's that big window on the top.
I'm from Tacoma.
That's why
that's
why there's a big window on top. You can throw some of it in there.
Oh,
that's how it works.
That's that big window's for.
Yeah, I grew up on a
NBD. Okay, I've always wondered.
I grew up in Carnation, so there were cows. And that was it.
Like the cheap little flower?
No. Carnation Dairy. Weirdo. I think maybe that's why they were named after it. Actually, it is on the milk. You're right.
So, yeah, the Broncos are back. I'm kind of with Dave on this one. I think that regardless of who's available, I think the Boise State will be better this week. I don't know if bulletin board material or lighting a fire. I don't really know if that's like a tangible thing that actually means something. But in this case, I'm going to say that it does, and I think that they're going to come out ready to go.
With what Harsin said this week?
What'd he say?
No, is that what you're saying?
What?
That what Harsin said is going to be inspiring to the team?
I do.
Okay.
I think so. At the end of the day, though, it's got to feel good that coach is sticking up for you, backing you, and maybe that just makes you dedicate yourself just a little bit more. I'm not saying they need more dedication. Maybe in some cases. I mean, Bryan has said that out of some backups. By the way,
he's been frank about that.
By the way, Jordan Happel's played a lot at safety lately.
Yeah, a lot.
Especially since BYU.
Huh.
Whatever.
I'm not saying, but I'm saying.
Connect the dots, everybody.
I'm not saying, but I'm saying.
Connect them dots.
I think. Yeah, because even when, he stayed in when DeAndre went out, or he went in with, instead of sharing time with Nawahine, he came. Good call.
Yeah.
Good call.
So I think he's the guy that's doing it right. So let's just stay with the positives.
Yeah.
He's the guy that's doing it right.
He played all year and all of a sudden starts at San Jose State.
Yeah, and
it was because he was
hurt.
A lot. It's because he was hurt. Let's just put that out there. So
he was hurt earlier in the year, but still, he's back, and he didn't take much time to work his way in. One of
the all-time weirdest things ever was when Mark Wahlberg tweeted about him. Do you remember that?
I do. That was go back to the recruiting days. You're like, why is Mark Wahlberg tweeting about?
Like, what the hell is this?
Where's he from? Portland? What?
Yeah, he's from Portland. You're like,
what is happening?
This is he goes, hey, how you doing? It's a really wicked good football player. And you're like, what? Boston? No, he's from Portland. Eventually figured out why, because his dad and Jordan Brandon, they have like Wahlburgers shoes. But
still funny though.
Still funny. Good time. Yeah. So every time I see Jordan, he's a really nice nice kid. And every time I can't help but not think of Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, Dave.
Yeah, man.
Anything coming up on the at the Athletic?
Yeah, so this week, obviously, read about Harsin.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this morning had a story run about George Holani. I talked to DJ Uiagalelei, his high school quarterback.
Okay.
Who's the number 1 ranked quarterback in the 2020 class.
Is he still in high school?
Yeah, he's a senior this year.
That's why I like QB1.
He was
Big
a sophomore that year.
Man, I can't believe he's still in high school.
Ray Al Mitchell when he supplanted him.
Gracious.
But yeah, so I talked to DJ about George, and
okay.
He had a fantastic quote. Basically, he said what you're seeing right now is the trailer, and the movie hasn't even started yet.
Ooh,
about
like
George.
that.
So he's like,
he said that, DJ?
Yeah, DJ did. So on QB1, I was nervous because I got his phone number. And I saw QB1. I was like, that kid said like 4 words.
Yeah, he was very quiet.
And I called him.
Talkative?
He could not have been more excited to talk about
maybe
George.
He's just camera shy.
I think he's one of those guys doesn't love talking about himself.
I said people like talk about other guys.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like that.
And he was fantastic. So I wrote that. Going to write a little bit about kind of the offensive line, a little bit about their struggles. Got some stats that maybe support how the fans feel.
Okay.
But we talked to some of those guys this week, and then I'll have my mailbag at the end of the week.
Yeah, and of course it's senior day. So we'll hear from some of the seniors potentially playing for the final time on the blue, although they don't believe it's their final time on the blue.
This is it's weird with the conference championship. It used to be like, hey, this is a big deal, senior day. Ian Smart gets a good kick an extra point,
Attempt to kick an extra point.
Yeah, Jovan Hutchinson scores a touchdown. Now it's kind of like, they might be back in a couple weeks. So
you remember, was it Joe Southwick? He had hurt himself, and they threw him in there for one.
Yes.
I think it was 2 plays.
Yeah.
But
yeah, after he hurt his ankle.
His last play was I think he just dumped it over off of like a little swing pass.
And like
DJ
Harper
touchdown. Ended up scoring, long touchdown. Yeah, I can't remember. But either way.
It was Harper's 8th season, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and then Southwick was done.
Yeah.
Like that was it.
Because he never played again.
And he never did play again for Boise State. The bowl game was supposed to, but yeah. We got lots of stuff. Bronco Roundup Game Day Show live from 7 to 8 o'clock on KTVB, Idaho's News Channel 7. Looking forward to that one. Basically got some of the stuff that even Dave was just talking about, and a lot more. We'll go into air some of Bryan Harsin stuff, Senior Day, David Moa, a 6th-year senior that has been here for a while. We'll get his thoughts on what it's meant to be a Bronco.
An all-timer.
And he is an all-timer.
I've been around here.
A really genuinely nice guy.
He's working his way onto the Mount Rushmore for me. I think he's close.
I like that. Yeah. You just got to include the hair.
Yeah.
Before we get out here, we got to mention a couple other things. The Boise State basketball team went on the road to Oregon that same night. Got beat pretty good by the Ducks.
We started having flashbacks.
Yeah.
Do you remember the night where New Mexico beat Boise State?
By the way, that's not David. You can hear that noise in the background. Again, it's just construction that's going on in our newsroom. You might not have even heard that noise. But
I thought we were doing the gender reveal and doing that video.
Exactly. There it goes. You guys have to hear that. I don't know if you did, but sorry. Finish it up. My bad.
No, I got sidetracked.
I know. Same here. Boise State men's basketball.
Yeah, men's basketball.
Was on the road.
I started thinking about New Mexico. The night that they beat Boise State was also the night when Holly Holm beat Ronda Rousey. Mm-hmm. And I was like, is this the opposite of that, where Boise State men's basketball gets rolled and then they get upset at home by Wyoming?
Yeah.
Well, they beat Wyoming, so there you go. But
that's big for New Mexico because Ronda Rousey isn't she from there?
Holly Holm's from there.
Or excuse me.
Yeah,
got that backwards.
Yeah, that was like the hugest night
like,
ever.
I remember there was
them.
like a huge energy in the press box.
Oh, those guys went crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, the men's basketball team got rolled up by Oregon, but Oregon has proven themselves to be very good.
Oregon's going to be good. I mean, and also I don't think that any team out there is going to shoot 65% from behind the arc while attempting like 33s against Boise State. I don't think that's going to be a huge issue moving forward.
And Austin played well against a good competition, so I think that kind of, again, shows what he's going to be able to do this year.
Yep. College of Idaho looks to keep it rolling this week. Big week ahead as we hit the stretch run here of November. You good?
I'm so good.
I'm good too. Good discussion today, Dave.
Absolutely.
Everybody, we will see you next week here on Jay and Dave's podcast, Jay and Dave's Sports Bar. 2 weeks in a row. Come on. Serving the Idaho sports scene.